Alright, a new FNAF theory. You know, for once, I probably shouldn't do one that's based on sister location. Nah, screw it, let's just do one based on Immortal and the Restless. So, as I'm sure that many of you would know, The Immortal and the Restless is a soap opera TV show presented in sister location. It features an undead immortal purple vampire named Vlad, who definitely isn't a stand-in for anybody. His love interest, a blonde woman named Clara, and a baby that Clara claims is theirs, but one that Vlad seems to not believe for a while. Assuming the pretty obvious stand-in, a question is then posed. Why is Vlad, or William, stating that the baby isn't theirs? We know of 3 children of William's: Michael, Elizabeth, and the crying child. Or Evan. Or Cassidy. Or Dave. I think that's every name ticked off. Hopefully no one's mad at me. Nevertheless, is this weird vampire man trying to tell us that one of William Afton's kids isn't actually his? You'd never assume that he would have adopted or anything, but then again, we don't have a concrete understanding of many of the reasons why William does anything that he does. Only theories based on lines of rational thinking, assuming that William is actually a rational thinker, which he still potentially might not be. You know what, now that I've said that, I feel like I'm saying that child murder can be seen as rational. Yeah, whatever, I'm not rewriting that section, it stays in, I guess. But if the TV show is telling us that one of William's kids isn't his, it's worth going down the list to consider which kid is the most likely to actually be the odd one out. First of all, we're gonna have to assume that William actually loves all 3 of his kids, at least initially, regardless of whether or not they are actually his. If we don't assume this, then I can't really see it being the crying child. I don't think I'm wrong when I say that most headcanons in the community would have the crying child being bitten as the catalyst for the subsequent aftermath that William racks upon the toddlers of the town. But if crying child isn't his kid, and therefore he just doesn't care as much, then most of those headcanons can't happen. Since it's a headcanon that I'm pretty entrenched with, or at least I've not seen a truly compelling argument for another reason yet, I feel that he has to at least love crying child as much as the others, even if he's adopted or something. However, despite overcoming this obstacle, there is one more problem with the crying child potentially not being William's kid. Say, for instance, that he isn't. William loves him as much as these other kids, and then the accident happens in 1983. Well, what's the difference in the story if crying child isn't his kid? There really isn't one. If crying child's death is the catalyst for the story, then William loves him as his kid. And if William loves him as his kid, the fact that he is or isn't his kid literally doesn't impact the story whatsoever. Now, admittedly, in other headcanons it might, and potentially does, and I definitely encourage you to explore the ramifications that would happen if crying child isn't William's kid, and somehow Elizabeth's death or something else happens before this that helps cause all of the subsequent calamities, including crying child's death. However, for this video, we're just gonna rule him out. It's either unimportant to the story, or it completely breaks the story. Next, let's talk about the darling daughter, Elizabeth. First of all, Elizabeth definitely thinks that William is her dad, saying that she will make her father, presumably William, proud of her in FNAF 6. But at the same time, Elizabeth was killed at a young age. William may have adopted her as a baby, and William may be the only father Elizabeth ever knew. However, in the case of Elizabeth, I think that we once again hit the same hurdle that we did with the crying child. What changes happen to the story if it's Elizabeth that's adopted? As far as I can think, there isn't any. She still dies, she still possesses baby, and still wants to make her father, the person who raised her, proud. We know that William shuts down the restaurant after her death, and we know that he warned her not to speak to baby, which I think he would do even if Elizabeth wasn't his biological child. Again, The problem here is that the story just doesn't change even if Elizabeth isn't William Afton's kid. Which leaves us with just one child left. Yeah, plot twist, I don't think it's Michael either. The first reason is that it is now a consistent point that Michael looks very similar, if not identical, to his father. The sister location crew believe that Michael is William, which was demonstrated through Enid's lines to him during the Night 5 restricted section room, and also by Michael himself in his sister location custom night message to William. Now look, maybe that's a coincidence, but it's a pretty major one to overlook. Besides, if Michael were not actually William's child, it would ruin the trope of the child atoning for the father's misdeeds. And that trope was in Star Wars, and if it's in Star Wars, then it was perfect, if you ignore half the franchise. Jokes aside, Michael is just likely not the child either. So, yeah, that's it, I guess. This was all just a giant red herring, apparently. And you're starting to wonder why you're watching this video. I mean, I'm starting to wonder why I'm making this video. But don't worry, I've got a few more ideas I want to quickly discuss before I get to talking about what I really think is going on here. So, you know how earlier I said there was a plot twist with Michael? Yeah, well, I'm about to plot twist the plot twist by telling you that William has a fourth baby. And by that I mean he just has a robotic baby. Could the Immortal and the Restless actually be saying that the animatronic baby isn't William's? Well, probably not. The blueprints for the sister location animatronics all have the name Afton Robotics across the bottom, which is distinguished from Fazbear Entertainment using blueprints in FNAF 6. Furthermore, at the start of sister location, William is being asked by some higher-ups of some variety what the deal is with the designer baby. Why would he be being asked this if someone else, like Henry, built her? Now, sure, William could have just stolen the fully built baby, the baby that was already built by Henry. And there is a precedent for Henry building baby in the first build of FNAF World and in the fourth closet. Both of those canons have Henry either admitting or very clearly being responsible for the creation of Baby. Does that mean he built Baby in the games? If you ask some people, I'm sure that they would say that it does. But then why would Henry build an animatronic that, in the games, counts how many children are in a room and then literally stomach claw kidnaps one of them once they're alone? It doesn't seem to make any sense. Whilst this could be the right answer, I feel that there needs to be more evidence pointing towards it in the games, which is something that I haven't been able to find. That doesn't stop it from being true, either in the real canon of the games or in your own personal headcanons, but it does make arguing for it being in the real canon of the games a harder task to accomplish.
But let's take 2 steps back and actually re-watch Immortal and the Restless, because Vlad is wrong. Vlad seems convinced that the kid isn't his, despite the fact that it quite clearly is. It's almost the spitting image of him. Since the kid's almost the spitting image of him, it's probably a stand-in for Michael, which means that Michael probably is the child that William at least believes isn't his, despite the fact that we know it is. But if William believes that Michael isn't actually his kid, then that would explain why Michael is almost tossed away just to help rebuild Baby in sister location, and why William really seems to have no love for his oldest child. It would be an early sign of William's mental instability, something that we'll come to be quite accustomed to throughout the series. It would demonstrate why Ballora, seemingly a robotic reconstruction of his wife, was created without eyes, or, more aptly, with her eyes shut, unwilling to see the truth that William himself could only see. Or, at least, the truth that he thought he could see. And perhaps that's all Immortal and the Restless was meant to be, a demonstration that William could convince himself of anything, and that no one and nothing could convince him otherwise, even if he was wrong.